What is happening, everybody? It is time for another MLB Live Before Lock show. Join my friend Eric Lindquist. We got Jacob doing the producing today. Always good to see Jacob as Jordan is on yet again another arduous vacation, which to him, it's like the worst thing that could ever happen is a vacation. He comes back from Hawaii and he's like, oh my God, guys, I got sunburned there. So now he's over in Ireland, balancing out his vacations. Went somewhere hot, now he went somewhere cold. Jacob producing in his place, but most importantly, Eric and I breaking down the baseball slate for you guys. We're sponsored by Underdog. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, what is happening with you today?
Yeah, so it's funny that you're like, oh yeah, I never see Jacob, because I'm pretty sure I see Jacob more than I see my wife during the day. I spend many, many hours, and I must say, at least the man is cultured in the old basketball streets. We would always have fun shooting the shit before, after shows, and just hang out, chatting about his Celtics, my Timberwolves. They'll probably be matching up in the finals next year, except for the Thunder picking up Hardenstein. Ridiculous pickup for them. What do you think about Taurean Prince going to the Milwaukee Bucks? What a veteran signing.
Literally does nothing to me. No movement at all. At no point did I get erect from that move. There was nothing happened.
It just made me laugh because I was like, this is real. This is a real alert that I just got today. But anyway, good to have producer Jacob here on a Live Before Lock. I know his favorite show to be producing in all the land. Let's get to it, shall we?
Yeah, man. We'll start as per usual with the pitching options. And then also no weather to worry about today, which is nice. Did you check out the post-contest sins from last night?
I did not. Did I have very good lineups that turned terrible?
I didn't look at your lineups to know, but because everybody got off that Rays Royals game due to weather and just like all the players were 1% owned, I've been doing these threads where I recap the slates every day. And I just didn't really think there was that much to recap because basically the ownership was so low on the Rays and Royals and the game ended up playing. So the game did, fortunately for our purposes, end up sucking for DFS. Not that it mattered because you and I were playing a bunch of Coors Field. So it's not like we were killing the slate anyway. But basically what you wanted to do yesterday after the dust settled is the ownership came in just so ridiculously low in that Kansas City Tampa Bay game that those stacks each ended up having like 30% expected ROIs. And then just nothing else projected well.
Did I just read this right? Gene Silva is fighting in 10 days. Is this a real alert?
Yes, it is.
Holy shit. That is a quick turnaround, Gene Silva. That just came through.
Yep, going to be fighting Drew Dober there, according to what I got from my Twitter notifications there. Wow. And Malakar says KC killed his lineups. I think in hindsight, Eric and I were probably on the wrong side of that. Probably should have played a bunch of KC and Tampa Bay. Go ahead.
If it were a smaller slate, you're embracing, like, just because you get a 1% stack there, I mean, what are the chances that one of those two stacks end up optimal? Like, obviously, if you could go back in time and say, I know that this game is going to play clean, but they had a massive delay in the middle of the game. So you didn't want the pitchers. It started in the fifth inning, right? Fifth, sixth inning. And you didn't want the pitchers. And then you're embracing the risk of the game not playing for what upside? 8% chance for one of the two teams combined to end up being it. So like, if you have zero risk involved in your portfolio, sure, you could just say, I'm going to play 100% of this game and just hope that it goes and everybody's going to hit eject on it. But like on a 12-game slate, I think it's different than doing it on like a 3 or 4-game slate where you're probably going to want to embrace that risk no matter what.
Yeah, it was just what ended up happening was the ownership was so low there and got dispersed everywhere else that like the only lineups that projected to be good yesterday were lineups that included that game. So
yeah, it's wild.
I certainly did not expect the game would be like just everybody ejected. The entire game was 1% to 2% owned. So that was what ended up happening. That ended up looking really good there in the post-contest sims. But more importantly, no weather to worry about today, correct? Nothing you're concerned about?
Beautiful. Nope, I got nothing.
All right, so let's start by talking about the pitchers today. And there's certainly going to be one pitcher at the top that is going to reign supreme on this slate. That is Chris Sale. We do have a handful of pitchers who are 9K or more expensive, but the one that is just picking up all the ownership, Chris Sale at 10,200 is 40% owned. Zach Wheeler at 9,800, still popular, 24% owned, but it's still about half of Chris Sale. And then we got Logan Gilbert, 23% against the Baltimore Orioles. And then Ronel Blanco, who remains just super expensive on every slate. He is 9K and only 1% owned, the sole contrarian expensive spend-up option. Let's start with Chris Sale, though, Eric, because he is just so crazy popular. Guys, play Chris Sale in cash. Something you want to be doing.
Yes.
What are you going to do with him in GPPs when he's 40% owned, though?
I'm underweight. I have a little bit more Zach Wheeler. I have a little less than the 40% mark on Chris Sale. I've currently got 32%. I think he's a great option. I think the strikeout stuff is really, really good again. I think he's just proven to be that dude once again, which isn't all that surprising, but you get enough righties. I will say Soler batting leadoff, kind of an interesting deal there, around 24% ownership. I mean, they did put all these righties with pretty high strikeout rates up top there. Soler, Slater, Ramos, Chapman, all of them north of 23, 24% against lefties. But I am still going to have some. I just don't know if I can get to 40% considering the price tag, considering Coors Field, considering all these other spots that we want to be invested. I just don't think me investing 50%, 60% Chris Sale is going to happen on this particular slate.
I'm about even with the field on Chris Sale. I don't have a massive issue with it. He's going up against a Giants team that is not the most daunting offense to go up against. Chris Sale also has had tremendous strikeout stuff this year, so there's a lot of upside. Part of the opportunity cost of me playing about as much Chris Sale as the field, it means that there is a very shitty pitcher that's showing up in a bunch of my lineups that we'll talk about in a little bit as we go here. But I mean, Chris Sale, 2.79 ERA, 2.64 expected ERA. I can't believe that he stayed healthy this year. This to me is one of the most unexpected bounce backs that I can remember happening. Not because Chris Sale was somebody who was washed per se the last couple of years. He just wasn't healthy. He wasn't pitching. So you did have to wonder, like, what would his velocity look like this year? His velocity is as high as it's been in like 7 years. So Chris Sale, he's throwing the ball well, which I'm sure is correlated to him being healthy. All the numbers look great. The strikeout rate is there. So there's a reason he's one of the front runners to win the NL Cy Young this year. I keep expecting him to get hurt at some point. It just hasn't been the case. So cash games, play Chris Sale. For tournaments, it's hard to be way overweight to the field because he is so popular, but he's my most rostered pitcher, and I'm right around even with the field.
Lowest expected ERA for him by a landslide since 2018. He is very, very back as a 35-year-old. And yeah, it's unexpected for sure. Again, for me in tournaments, I really like Zach Wheeler, 19.5% top 2 percentage. I mean, we can start Sale and move our way down. I think Gilbert against Baltimore, there's upside. There's also risk, considering how good Baltimore is against right-handed pitching. Blanco, I'm not really going to land on at all. Yesterday, I made the case for Arrighetti, where he has the strikeout stuff and he has that kind of upside. He got completely demolished there early on. Didn't end up being a complete catastrophe. I was more than happy to sacrifice 18% to the gods and move on with my day there. But Ronel Blanco won't be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I have no Ronel Blanco lineup. Zach Wheeler is my second favorite pay-up option here. So if I am looking to deviate from Chris Sale, I am a little surprised that Zach Wheeler and Logan Gilbert have the same ownership, considering that Zach Wheeler, I mean, I know he is on the road, but it's in Chicago. Chicago's offense has not been great since the first month of the season. And then also, this isn't one of the games where the wind is blowing out. It's just a crosswind, a little bit of wind going from right field to left field. So I view it as a much easier matchup for Zach Wheeler against the Cubs than what Logan Gilbert has against the Orioles. So if you are looking to pivot off Sale, I think the answer is pretty clearly Wheeler.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, Logan Gilbert, somebody that for a different fantasy site, we're talking DraftKings. I bet you can make the association of what I'm talking about, but took less than 18.5 fantasy points for Logan Gilbert. I'm going to have some Baltimore pieces, hopefully some more fantasy score guys show up there for that site that I am alluding to, but very much a fan of shorting Logan Gilbert. Over on that side. I'm still going to have some in DFS here for today, but it is a freaky matchup against Baltimore. So yeah, Zach Wheeler against the Cubs. I tweeted this out. Did you see the line movement perchance of that game?
I did not. What was it?
It just basically has moved 15 cents for the Cubs. And I was trying to make sense of what it is that everybody wants to back Imanaga over Zach Wheeler. But like the first 5 odds moved. The line for the game moved. I'll double check here at the moment, but it had moved from like minus 125, minus 126. It was like my favorite play on the board yesterday when I recorded last night for Lindy's stuff. And it's gotten better. And it's just very, very strange to me that people want to back Imanaga in such a prominent way.
Yeah, so I was doing Kyle Kerms' show. One of our friends, you've been doing a show. I was a guest on earlier. We do a betting show. We go through all the games. And yeah, when we were trying to do bets for every game we go through, I also like the Phillies money line if I'm picking a side for that game. And one thing, too, as we start to talk about some of these other pitchers in the 8K range, which includes Imanaga. Imanaga is 8,700, Gavin Stone 8,500, Rodon is 8,100, Kikuchi is 8,000. I do wonder with pitchers like Imanaga, Luis Heel, if part of the reason they found a lot of success early on in the season is just teams had no information on these pitchers, didn't know what the pitch mix was, didn't know what their strategies were, what the general kind of, just mixing up locations you'd see from these pitchers. I don't think it's a coincidence that Imanaga and Luis Heel have kind of started to drop off at the exact same time. So I look at Imanaga at $8,700, 8% owned. I think not all that long ago, I would have been taking a bunch of shots on him, but he's not making his way into my lineups. Are there any pitchers that you like in the 8K range at all, Eric, outside of Carlos Rodon, who's 22% owned? And then we'll talk about the chalk piece in him.
Yeah, Gavin Stone's a little bit of an ownership play against Arizona, 1.6% ownership. He's coming off of some really nice outings. He's somehow been better than Bobby Miller, and I will just keep racking my head around it. But Gavin Stone coming off a complete game shutout. It was against the White Sox on the road. A little bit different taking on Arizona here in LA, where it's 78, 80 degrees at first pitch, wind slightly blowing out. Much more difficult matchup. The lefties. I mean, last season, Arizona really got after some righties, but only a 99 WRC plus, I suppose, this season. It's just a really good young pitcher, 2.33 ERA, 1.10 whip. If it weren't for the 1.6% ownership, I don't think I would be talking about him like this. And then Rodon against Cincinnati, I think that there's upside for Rodon to some extent, considering, Cincinnati will strike out against a lot of random arms, but I'm definitely concerned with some of the righties that exist there. Carlos Rodon, a fly ball pitcher with the humidity and things ramping up for the summer there, 4.2 implied run totals. So it's, for me, a little bit overweight on Gavin Stone here. Got him in 7% of lineups, so like 6.66% of lineups. The Devil's number, that's great. And then Carlos Rodon sitting at around 8%.
Yeah, these contrarian guys in this price range. I mean, Kikuchi against a healthy Houston team, no thanks. Gavin Stone, don't buy into him. Imanaga, I do think there's he's still going to be good going forward, Imanaga, but he's not realistically a guy who's going to have like a sub-2 ERA or anything like that. Like Ranger Suarez, another one who's going to regress in the second half of the year. Now we have the question where we start talking about what to do about Carlos Rodon, who is north of 20% owned. He has a cheap price point. This Yankees pitching staff, when Garrett Cole first came back from injury, you start to go like, hey, with this Yankees offense and the top of the rotation that includes Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Luis Heel, you'd be like, this is really a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. And now what's happened? Cole's pitched terribly. Luis Heel appears to be completely broken. And then Rodon has regressed and has started to mirror what his underlying numbers are. So Yankees pitching staff went from looking great to terrible very, very quickly. What are you going to do with Rodon against the Reds? I played a good amount of Luis Heel yesterday. Clearly did not go well. Does Rodon suffer a similar fate?
I think so. 34.7% ground ball rate. His fly ball rate is a little bit off the charts, 4.35 xFIP this season. I will say there is hope, considering, he's up at a 295 BABIP. He could see some regression to that. I think that could come down, and it wouldn't completely surprise me. He gets to take on a Cincinnati offense that hasn't been crazy imposing all season long, but they're close to league average against lefties, 99 WRC plus 135 ISOs down there, a little bit lower. But I am pretty interested in getting to some like 2 and 3 man Cincinnati pieces on this slate rather than getting to like 22% Rodon. I have him at 8% of my lineups right now. I'm just not getting there at this kind of ownership. I would rather get into this 7K range and dabble with some Davis Daniel, with some Dean Kramer, who I don't know what the pitch count looks like, but it is the best matchup in baseball for strikeouts in one of the best pitchers parks in baseball, if not the best. I'm willing to embrace some of that. And then Ryan Pepio, I think, is just a really underpriced pitcher for what his talent has been, 7,100. So for me, I think the 8K range is just overpriced and overowned with a guy like Rodon relative to what's cheaper than him.
Yeah, I actually like Rodon. He is in a quarter of my lineups right now. And I think it's a good buy low spot. Also, I don't think he's going to come in at 22% owned. I think that the field, kind of like yesterday with Luis
What did Heel end up? I didn't even notice.
Sorry, what was that?
I didn't see what heel ended up yesterday. We had that conversation point, and I kind of got to doing my own thing after a
Yeah,
loss.
he ended up being, so I think he was projected for 30% ownership. He came in at 23%.
Okay.
I also played Luis Heel in single entry where he was 10% owned, where once again, it didn't work out. But given just the uncertainty of what was going on with Luis Heel and what his ownership ended up being, I don't really regret playing him. But it does give me more confidence than Carlos Rodon is not going to be the 22% owned that he's projected to be, because we've seen these Yankee pitchers have not gone well. Kind of a similar situation with Luis Heel yesterday, where, he was projected for a certain ownership based on data, but there was also some narrative surrounding him where he hadn't pitched well as of late. I think a lot of that is going to come into play with Rodon as well, where Rodon projected for 22% ownership. I would actually be fairly surprised if he's north of 20% owned.
I'm probably with you, but God, I'm just a little bit nervous. Let me just kind of look around here, because there have been periods of time where I thought Carlos Rodon was starting to get back to his normal self. Like, he had a really good outing against my Twins that you and I both highlighted when that went down at the beginning of June. The velocity's been back. He's been pitching really deep into games, 109, 107 pitches. I mean, you're getting those chances from him. It's just that he's giving up 10 and 11 hits his last two outings. I can't imagine he'd get up to this ownership because of what have you done for me lately. But I don't know. I bet he's still 20, and 20 is quite a bit. We'll see what happens. But right now, I've been undercutting him pretty heavily.
And if we go ahead and look at our super chats here, as per usual, we had Chris Williams gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Chris, as always, thanks for supporting the channel. If anybody else wants to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do appreciate that. But let's go ahead and look at the cheaper pitching options. And in the 7K range, where you said you have some pitchers you have interest in, Andrew Abbott is unowned at $7,700. He's the first pitcher that's sub 8K. Then we got Davis Daniel, Jordan Hicks, Dean Kramer, Ryan Pepio, Michael Wacha. So of these pitchers, Dean Kramer is 14% owned against the Seattle Mariners. And then Davis Daniel, 29% owned against the Oakland A's. Eric, what do you make of Davis Daniel, who really put up a very strong outing in his last start and was somebody who, just guy who was terrible in the minor, like really terrible in the minor leagues. Not a lot of strikeout upside, a lot of hard contact, gave up a lot of runs, comes up to the big leagues and just wrecked the last slate where he was in the same exact matchup. What are you going to do with him today?
I'm going to play him because of the matchup and the ballpark in Oakland, but I don't know exactly where I'm going to land. I'm going to be doing some late swapping a little bit with some Davis Daniel lineups and some of the batters, and there's a lot of exposure that I have. Again, I'm a little bit overweight to Gavin Stone, where, he has no ownership coming on him. We've got Baltimore and Seattle. Those pitchers are constantly going to be popular here as well. I think it's going to really dictate what happens with some of my lineups in the early window, how much I end up landing on, because he's probably the guy that I'm the most willing to hit eject on between Kramer, Gilbert, and Daniel. Between the three of them, I think Daniel's just, you go to his AAA numbers, 4.67 xFIP this season, 378 BABIP though, and you never know what you're getting in the PCL. Like, it's a disaster for all of these pitchers. It's so hard to get a gauge on what they're going to be when they come up to the major league level. But there's no doubt as you work through that Detroit outing, it was extremely impressive. He was doing everything you could possibly want out of a young pitcher. I just think that it's like maybe a little bit of an overreaction to one start, and then it's just as good of a matchup as you could possibly walk into. Going to Oakland in that ballpark, it's pretty enticing to fire him up, though. What we saw was that changeup to lefties. He was just absolutely pinpoint with that thing. Now, does that work against some of the righties that we're going to be getting out here? Can you actually roll that out? Because you're only getting 3 lefties in that confirmed lineup: Lede, Soderstrom, Lawrence Butler. The stuff against righties doesn't look as good, which is weird to say for a righty. But, if that changeup can't be effective to them, he might be more hittable for some righties going forward. He might be like a Logan Gilbert type where, he gives up more power to righties and gives up a little bit more contact to the righties here. But there's no doubt that changeup especially was what stood out to me. But considering the quality of these lefties, they're not very good on the Oakland side. I think I'm willing to be under the field if it comes to it. I'm also pretty willing to eat the chalk if I've got some good lineups with some high scores coming into it and I need the salary relief.
Yeah, so I have about half of the amount of Davis Daniel that the field has right now. I have him in less than 20% of lineups. Yeah, at his cheap price point in the matchup, he's playable. I really do like stacking against him with the Oakland A's as well. Remember, we had that slate not all that long ago with Hunter Green, where we were looking up some of the numbers of what happens when a pitcher faces a team in consecutive starts and what some of the outcomes of that were. And we found that it adds a little bit more variance to pitchers in those kind of scenarios. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the kind of spot this ends up. Well, actually, no, we started against the Tigers last time out. So nix that. Never mind. It was against the Tigers that Davis Daniel started. So never mind on that point. But I'm certainly not sold on Davis Daniel overall. And his projections are terrible. Like every single projection site you look at has this guy as a pitcher who's expected to be a very low strikeout guy. The highest projection he has on any single site for projection rate the rest of the year is 20.2% from the bat. Every other site has him like the mid to high teens for strikeout rate. And then also for ERAs, every site also has him close to a 5 ERA guy the rest of the season. So I really don't buy into Davis Daniel. He didn't pitch well in the minor leagues. I don't expect him to pitch well in the big leagues either. It's a good matchup, but I'm going to be underweight to the field too, and I'll take some leverage shot stacking against him.
I have no problem doing that whatsoever. And I do want to repeat because, they throw out some bad lefties. I don't want to just say that, all matchups are created equal because they're not. Detroit, throws out absolute garbage. Akil Baddoo was in that lineup, for the love of God. He strikes out. I'm pretty sure me, some little kid who's throwing down at Little League. Like, there's a lot of people who are going to strike out Akil Baddoo. You had Zach McKinstry. Riley Green is a good hitter. Colt Keith is pretty decent from what we've seen so far. But Akil Baddoo is definitely not. And, there's some artificial strikeout rate there, I suppose. But in that first outing, 40% K rate to the lefties, only 18.2% to the righties, did a decent job of preventing that power. But I repeat, it was the Angels. It is also the Oakland Athletics, and that's why we're seeing the ownership where it is. But I'm just pointing out that the changeup was really effective against the lefties in that lineup. Not really lefties that are showing up here. There's only 3 of them, and none of them are that poor. I mean, Bleday, Soderstrom, Butler. I think Butler might end up being all right at the big league level, but the other 2 seem like they're definitely going to be pretty solid. Bleday up there with that xwOBA.
Yeah, this is not a price range I really like all that much, the 7K range here. The field loves Davis Daniel, and I'm underweight to him. What are you doing with Dean Kramer? He's not popular or anything, but he has that matchup against the Seattle Mariners. We know how much that leads to strikeouts. Also, Dean Kramer has quietly been really solid in recent years. The question then becomes with Dean Kramer is how many pitches do you think we could expect out of him?
I don't know. He pitched. I don't know if you saw anything that he did at AAA too. It was absolutely abysmal. I'm not sure. Again, the Dean Kramer thing is more of like, are you playing Milwaukee bats? Do you need like 7,100? I think the field can land there. And it has everything to do with the matchup. It's not that I think he's going to be crazy successful. Dean Kramer also, you said pretty good stuff, 23.7% K rate. You get to go up against Seattle, but a 12.9% barrel percentage. I think the way that you're talking about going up against Daniel, like I don't have that much Oakland today. Normally I would be jamming a lot of Oakland on a slate like this. I have quite a bit of Seattle. Seattle's the stack that I actually prefer between the 2.
Yeah, I don't have Seattle stacks. I do not really have much of Dean Kramer either, though. So it's like both sides, not of all that much interest to me. I did have a bet that I placed earlier on Julio Rodriguez plus 750 to homer, just a really long odds for Julio Rodriguez to homer. But it's a game that overall I don't have that much interest in either side of. Anything else you want to talk about from the 7K range?
What do I want to talk about? Because I do think, again, Davis Daniel, Dean Kramer, I'm still going to play a little bit of. Jordan Hicks, don't really need to do it against Atlanta. Had some bird song yesterday. That worked out kind of nicely. Salvaged my night a little bit. But Ryan Pepio's the guy I really wanted to highlight. Him at 7% against Kansas City. I don't know what the field is doing shorting him here. I've got him in nearly 20% of my lineups. Yesterday, the weather was a huge concern. And I think the concern that we have here is the top of this Kansas City lineup. But like The weather's flipped on its head here in Kansas City. It's 72 with 80% humidity. That's a little bit different than like the 87, 88 degrees we've seen at a couple of these first pitches over the course of the last week and a half. And Ryan Pepiot has strikeout stuff. So like, what is the field doing? Just completely negating like the 7% here. I know Kansas City, is it the ideal matchup there for strikeouts? No, 19.5% K rate, 95 WRC plus, a park downgrade for all intents and purposes for Pepiot, not by much, but Michael Wacha on the other side of this one, 20.5% K rate. Ryan Pepiot's at 28.7%. If you're just talking about upside from a DFS perspective, I can't believe he's only 7% considering the strikeout arm that he has.
I think there's comparable pitchers to be found for similar ownership for cheap that we're about to talk about.
Joey Estes, welcome to the program.
Not Joey Estes. It is somebody far worse. I'll give you another guess, though.
Oh, my God.
So, by the way, we're going to talk. I'll just group together all of the pitchers who are sub 7K. There's one that I'm getting a good chunk of. Care to guess who it is?
Oh, it's the Festa Fiesta. Let's go.
Nope.
What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? You're not. If you say Adam Azura, I'm never talking to you again.
Boy, now I wish it was him. Keep going. Okay. Keep guessing.
Well, then there's only one guy that I haven't said. It's freaking Colin Ray, which just terrifies me that you're a person in the world. I said everybody else.
No, Keider Montero. He's 4K. He's 4K with strikeout upside. I don't think he's any good, but if you look at it,
I thought we were talking the 6K range. I didn't know we were going to the 4K range. That was the whole point.
I said everybody sub 7K to group together. I have no.
That's not fair. He's a baseball player.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's not fair. He's a baseball player. Would you prefer the word buzz?
He's 4K. It does not take much for pitchers who are 4K to give you a pretty decent outing relative to salary. And this is a guy who, if you do look at his minor league stats this year in AAA, 24.1% K rate. Last year in AAA, he had a 25.8% K rate. In AA last year, 29.6% K rate. In A-ball, 36.1% K rate. If he could potentially go out and get you like 5 innings, give up maybe even 3 or 4 runs, but strike out like 6 hitters or something like that, there's a path for upside here. I'm not going to say that I feel confident in it. It's not the most difficult matchup in the world against the Minnesota Twins, especially because, unfortunately, Royce Lewis, who's like Barry Bonds when he's healthy now.
I can't talk about it.
He's only healthy for like 30 games a year. You lose Royce Lewis last night. That's a massive downgrade to the Minnesota Twins offense. I'm taking shots on Keider Montero. He's not unowned, but 9% owned as a guy who's 4K. If you play Keider Montero, he's going to differentiate a lineup, and you can play whoever the hell else you want with him. That's what enables me to get to Chris Sale, even with the field, and still play Coors Field. I could play lineups, Sale, Montero, Coors.
You know, I have some Montero. I did know we were going all the way to the bottom there. I will say, I've never, as a Twins fan, hated somebody running the bases, like gotten nervous from somebody running the bases, quite the way I do watching Royce Lewis round around first. I'm like, stop, please. And apparently got hurt right before that. But when it happened in the moment, I was like, oh, it was him stretching out the double and he got hurt from that. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. But like, the dude has problems running. Why is this happening to me? Why can't we have nice things in Minnesota?
He's unbelievable when he's healthy. I put something out a few weeks ago that based on his numbers, if he was ever to stay healthy, he's an MVP candidate. It's just impossible to predict him to ever stay healthy. It seems like he's just being, you know who he's actually similar to? Here's the most similar comp to Royce Lewis over the last 10 years. It's Byron Buxton, his teammate. World beater when healthy. And I know Buxton's on the decline now. I just think all of those injuries.
Buxton, what are you talking about? Buxton's been awesome this year. Have you looked through Buxton's numbers?
What's his WRC?
You have no idea no, he's got a 46.5% hard hit. He's had the highest average he's had in years. You want to talk about his last 2 seasons? We can have a discussion about his last 2 seasons. He's been terrible, but like, oh my God, you're bringing up like just not even a real thing. 246 expected average. He's been
21 WRC plus.
He's been awesome this year. What are you talking about? Don't come after my boy Byron Buxton ever again like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's the same promise in Byron Buxton there was, like in 2021. No. But
No.
I mean, the other issue too.
He was number one pick in 2012, bro. Like,
you know, there's only been one season in his career that he's played over 100 games in 2017.
I am aware, Greg.
They've got two of them on the same team. Maybe get like 80 games out of Royce Lewis, 80 games out of Byron Buxton.
I hate it here. You're all
something like that.
Chat, shut up. Byron Buxton's my god, okay? Byron Buxton is ass. You guys are all talking delusional. What is wrong with you all? Good thing my wife brought me up here before this show.
He's also stopped walking this year, 4% walk, whatever. Byron Buxton's good when healthy. Royce Lewis good when healthy, and I don't think
they never are.
Either him to stay healthy. Keider Montero, I'm playing him in lineups. He's the flat min 4K. Yeah, he's not popular. I'm playing him.
I have 14% of him. Again, it's a 4K pitcher. I'm not going nuts. How much do you have?
I have over 20% of him.
Jesus, criminy Christ. Okay. That's more than I have at the moment, but part of that is also, but you lose that, but you also get a 2K Brooks Lee. I like Brooks Lee a little bit. We'll talk about him.
Yeah. So let's talk about other cheap pitchers. I've given out my stupid shitty play in Keider Montero. It's based on the price point, though. And also, if you look at our top pitchers tool, this is an absurd number. We with a 37.3% chance to be one of the top 2 value pitchers on the slate. You never see that for a slate of this size. But anybody else you're willing to take shots on as a punt option?
Yeah, I have some Christian Mena, but he is going to probably die. He is coming from... Again, PCL, you never know. We absolutely didn't see it for 4 months last year with Brandon Pfaadt, and then come playoff time, he was really, really good, and he was the pitching prospect that was promised. But Christian Mena, this dude is 4K as well. I mean, I've got 5% of him, but I like the Dodgers. That's not surprising. I like them very much.
Boy, he is Christian Mania.
I know he's the same. I've them projected within 2 of each other, the Detroit Rando and the Arizona Rando.
There's a couple of, there's the biggest issue with Christian Mania, other than the fact that he is also terrible, is that he's pitching against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I'm aware. I said that. I know, but 5% of him. I mean, I'm gonna have. I have a lineup where I played both 4K pitchers.
Oh my god! Is there even how much? If you play, I'm curious now. If you play the 2 4K pitchers, can you play the most expensive hitter at each position?
Just about. Let me actually find this lineup. Let me search for it because I'll just find it because I have it in some single entry stuff. Let's see.
I mean, I'm just doing it right now.
It's a 5-man. It's a 5-man, and then I have it's not the most expensive guys, but it has Matt Olson, it's got Kelnick, and then somebody else that with a 5-man Milwaukee.
Yeah, I guess you can't because there's the Coors Field games, so catcher's really expensive today. If you're paying all the way up at catcher, but yeah, you could just about roster any hitter you want. Christian Mania, the reason I'm willing to take shots on Montero, but not on Mania, other than the fact that Mania has, the matchup against the Dodgers, Mania has not shown the same strikeout upside in the minor leagues. And then on top of that, he's also gotten crushed in the minors. So this year, Arizona, 4.9 ERA, 5.65 FIP. But then even if you look at his numbers when he was in the Chicago White Sox minor league system, he got obliterated every single level that he pitched in the minor leagues as well. Eric, we continue to have these pitchers that get called up that are not ranked prospects that also suck in the minor leagues. I don't know why this trend is happening this year, but it is not stopping.
It should, but because teams are just looking for anything when you're not good. That's what they should be doing. Like Arizona in the NL West with San Diego and with LA with Gallen hurt, with all these other, everybody's hurt on their staff. It has been a disaster year as far as what your prospects are to get into the playoffs. They don't have nearly, last year was their shot at it. You missed it. It was an awesome run. Very happy for you. But to consistently get there and put yourself in that position, you need to run pretty darn good in the NL West to have everything pan out for you the way that it did. I think teams like Chicago, I'm not talking just about Crochet being really, really good, but they've been calling up guys like Drew Thorpe, and they should be doing this all the time. Find out what you have earlier. Say, you know what? It's okay if you get completely rocked. Like, you don't want their confidence to get completely shattered, but you might as well see what you got and utilize it immediately at the highest level so that they can make adjustments. So if they, you basically have no risk to bring them up now, rather than have them at AAA where you don't know if they're good or not. Bring them up to the big league level, let them go through the warts, tell them that it's all going to be all right. And then if you have a couple of them pan out, you've got trade bait, because some of them have ridiculous contracts. It's way more powerful than trying to move a dude who's making $25 million at the deadline.
I mean, there's no reason to think that especially the Diamondbacks are a team that's like in playoff contention. There's no reason to think that Christian Mania is realistically going to help their odds of winning going forward. So it's just another one of these weird, shitty pitchers that finds themselves on a big league roster. Any other punts you want to talk about?
Joey Estes. We didn't talk about him at all. He's been interesting. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. I don't put a lot of stock into a 5.25 ERA, 1.21 whip. He gets to take on LA in Oakland. I think that's kind of good enough for me, which it should be good enough in most of these spots. Just curious what you think about him.
I do have a bet on him today, under 4.5 strikeouts. So that is one thing that I have going for this game. Also kind of related to, here's where I got mixed up before. Joey Estes is making his second consecutive start against the Los Angeles Angels. So this is more applicable to that trend that we were talking about for that other Hunter Green start, where you just end up seeing pitchers and it being a little bit higher variance. So I do have some exposure here against him, actually 7% as a stack against Joey Estes. So that's actually my preferred way to play this, is stacking against Joey Estes a little bit. 6K against the Angels. He's not popular. There's only 4% owned. So it's not like I'm getting any kind of like crazy leverage or anything like that, but people are not going to be playing the Angels. And I do like them a little bit, seeing Estes for a second consecutive start.
Yeah, I'm fine with getting to some of the lefties. Shanuel, who apparently can't get up to an alarm clock. Willie Calhoun, batting cleanup. Matt Tice, Mickey Moniak. None of them world beaters by any means. And you've got Joey Estes with a 320 ISO against lefties, 298 expected ISO, just nuclear numbers. Against righties, it's not way better, 181 ISO, but 154 expected ISO. I think the best hitters, no doubt about it, in this Angels lineup are all righties. So Hop, Ward, Adele, when Joe Adele is doing the things he's supposed to, Luis Renifo. It is overall a lineup that you look at. I mean, Luis Renifo better from the right side. It's funny because he'll be batting left against this dude, but I find it pretty fascinating playing both sides of that one for me.
Whenever I hear Adele, I always think Adele the singer. And then I think of one of the funniest jokes I ever heard. It was like an off the cuff thing that Norm Macdonald said, where he said, as soon as Adele starts singing, does the concert end? This was back. It ends when the fat lady sings.
Oh, but
before
she got like semi-hot.
This was like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. But just like as an off the cuff thing, he said that was super, super funny at the time. And for whatever reason, I just think of that whenever Adele's name comes up, Joe Adele. But any other pitchers do you have interest in?
No, I think we've ran the gamut on it.
All right, so let's really quickly touch on FanDuel, where things are not really all that much different. Chris Sale's 20% owned. Davis Daniel is so absurdly owned on FanDuel that Davis Daniel is $9,100 on FanDuel and 25% owned. This is absurd.
It's absurd.
You could play Chris Sale for $2,000 more and less ownership. You could play Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler is $1,600 more than Davis Daniel and has less than half the ownership.
It's absurd.
I don't understand the Davis Daniel FanDuel ownership. Like, clearly it's a good spot, but he's $9,100 and he's crazy popular. So I like playing pretty much anybody else in GPPs over on FanDuel. Pay up for Chris Sale, pay up for Zach Wheeler. Hopefully Davis Daniel doesn't break the slate.
Yep, that would be great. And that's what Davis Daniel did last time. So you probably just talked it into fruition. Well done, Gregory.
Well done. All right, let's go and build some lineups here in the lineup generator. Jacob, if you wouldn't mind throwing that on screen. Also, if anybody's listening in our Discord channel, hit me up. One of the perks being a Stochastic member is you do get access to our Discord channel. If you want to sign up for any of the packages here at Stochastic, link below in the YouTube description box. You want to sign up for our MLB lineup generator? We're going to build some lineups for right now. It's less than $15. Player projections, ownership projections, access to our Discord. So let's check it out. Let's start by building some lineups on DraftKings. Let's see what shows up there, Jacob. So click on DraftKings. Go all stack types. And let's go balance lineups again today. Let's see what shows up, build and balance lineups. Don't lock anybody in. Give that a skip. And now save 20 lineups, Jacob, and then we'll look at the exposures in those lineups. So just click on 20 of these to save. What are you expecting? A lot of Brewers to show up, Eric?
I have a hunch. I have a hunch that we're going to see Milwaukee a lot.
Let's see. Chris Sale. Chris Sale is the one we ended up. Chris Sale is in almost every single lineup we built. Willie Adames, Garrett Mitchell at the top there. I'm seeing some Monasterio lineups. It looks like a lot of Milwaukee, but not as much as I thought it could potentially be. What other pitchers? So Dean Kramer actually showing up in lineups. I don't really love the 30% of Dean Kramer.
What are you talking about? We have like 60% Adames, 60% Mitchell. Then
I thought this was going to be like 85% Brewer stack.
So the Texas Rangers, I was going to say that was the stack that I was waiting to have show. I had brought up a little bit earlier. I like Atlanta going up against Wicks a little bit there. Getting to some pieces is like a contrarian stack, but I think the stack I have a little bit more confidence in. Adam Azur is terrible. Like, he is really bad. 5.5% strikeout rate to lefties. What? Like, that's not even real life. What's unfortunate is you don't have Corey Seager in this lineup today, but you have Josh Smith, Nathan
you
Lowe.
do have Corey Seager in the lineup.
Corey Seager's not in the lineup.
So as you were talking, the Rangers updated their lineup and added Corey Seager to it.
You fucking kidding me?
I am not. As of
like, as we're talking about
ago, Corey Seager starting for the Rangers.
Well, now he's the best play on the slate. That came out at 343 right now. Corey Seager's the best batter to get to on this slate.
What's his? I mean, I don't even know what his price point
is. He's
the
best. So let me read off his numbers. Adam Azur against lefties. This is like, I have talking points of things. 214 ISO against, 452 WOBA with an 18.3 degree average launch angle. His swinging strike rate against lefties is 5.47%. What?
Corey Seager, where is he?
I'm playing Corey Seager in single entry now. This is a foregone conclusion. Yeah, Corey Seager's the best play on the slate because not enough people are going to update their lineups between now and lock, and it's not going to have Corey Seager in it nearly enough. Like, I love Texas lefties today.
Skittles,
Josh Smith
Corey
not
Seager
in the lineup.
Is on DK. He's just not in the confirmed lineup because the lineup just got changed. He's on DK though. I just looked it up. He's $5,100.
So Josh Smith not in the lineup. Is that what we just had the update of?
Let's see.
Because then I got to change my single entry lineup.
No, Josh Smith is in the lineup. He's hitting third.
Somebody just said that in chat. Who's the lineup?
So it is Jonathan Ornelas who's not in the lineup anymore. He was expected at 9th. So Ornelas is out of the lineup. Seager is in batting second, and everybody else moves down one spot.
Yep, Seager. Smith is batting third. Yeah, please. Charles Moran, shut up. God.
Nah, it was an honest mistake.
That's okay.
I understand the confusion, though, because Smith was
Sorry, Yahoo had him out. Don't ban me. I'm not going to ban you. When's the last time I banned somebody in chat? It's got to be like a year now. I've not banned somebody in chat. Oh, no. Last time I banned somebody in chat was NFL season. I know the last person that I banned in chat.
Who was it?
There was one of the many accounts of you-know-who. I don't even want to say the name because otherwise he shows up. Yep, that's who it was.
Lord Voldemort. But yeah, we've got that new lineup there for the Texas Rangers. Charles is a good dude. He's always in chat. It's just an honest mistake there looking at the lineup. But yeah, good information to have there. Click on the stack exposures now.
Don't say his name, everybody. Don't say it. He'll show up. I can't have that on my conscience.
Yeah, so if you look at what we're getting to in the lineup generator, Eric, it's the Brewers are in about half of our lineup. Same with the Texas Rangers. We're getting to a lot of Texas, then followed by Minnesota, the Yankees, some Angels lineups there too. Nothing showing up for Colorado. Colorado is fairly low owned in Coors Field today. Who are you looking to play the most of in large field GPPs?
Milwaukee.
Same.
It's the same thing as like Milwaukee and Colorado yesterday. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about. Did it not work out? Sure, it didn't, but it's going to happen a lot during an MLB season where it doesn't work out, even if it's the right thing to do. Working through some of that ownership too, like Toglia was sub 15%, Nolan Jones was sub 15%, even though Nolan Jones, did you watch any of his at-bats yesterday? He might be the most tilting person to be over the field on in the history of DFS because he was nowhere near a baseball in any of his at-bats. Like nowhere near it.
Bases loaded and 1 out at one point as well, didn't he?
Yep, and they brought in a lefty, and let me just tell you, he swung so far in front of a changeup that it was painful. Like it actually caused me physical pain. It was actually no, it was high heat. It was like a 89 mile per hour fastball is what it was, and I was like, "What?" He had no hope, no hope. I knew he was striking out like as soon as they brought in the lefty. I was like, "It's over, no chance, no chance." He was getting struck out by freaking Keuchel every time.
Yeah. So for me, I was irrationally confident last night, even when, although actually, I think they had a couple runs a few innings in where it wasn't going too bad. They had a solo homer. Jacob Stallings had the triple. So it was like there was pieces of a stack where you could see it working out, even if they only scored a few runs. And then a couple innings went by, they didn't score, but it's like Dallas Keuchel's pitching. They're going to score eventually. And Keuchel came out of the game. I was like, oh boy, this is going to go well. This isn't going to be our night. And it wasn't. With that said, I have half of my lineups have stacks of Coors Field. The team I have the most of by a mile, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. It's hard to get away from them.
They are the best stack to get to today, and it is not remotely close. Yeah, there's nothing else to say about it, right?
Just single entry. I'm not going to play the Brewers in single entry. I think they're going to be crazy popular there.
Me too.
My best lineup, it looks like it's going to be a Colorado Rockies stack again. With that said, I am considering playing the A's in single entry just because I think we're going to see Davis Daniel potentially like 40% owned in single entry.
Yeah, I'm playing Milwaukee in single entry, but I have all the expensive guys. And then I'm playing, well, I have to change it here to some extent because I do want to add Corey Seager. Like, I'm not going to play a 3-man Texas. Like, I think I might end up making Texas my stack purely so that I can have all lefties against Missouri. This guy is so bad. I just remember Petco, just Adam Missouri. Milwaukee had like a 5 implied run total going into Petco on the road, which has been playing way up for righty power for what it's worth. It's a pretty wild phenomenon in Baseball Savant. If you guys look at the take off the 3-year rolling average and look at that ballpark, it is mind-blowing how much more it's playing up for power this year. But that being said, I want Corey Seager because he's going to be like 7-10% in single entry, and he should be about 15 plus.
Yeah. Also, only 3 games locking at the start of lock: Reds, Yankees, Astros, Blue Jays, and then the Braves and Giants game. Let's build some FanDuel lineups here now. Jake, if you wouldn't mind going back into the lineup generator, build some FanDuel lineups and see what looks different on FanDuel relative to DK. Let's see. Yeah, couple more back. Yeah, there we go. All right, FanDuel and all the same settings, all stack types, balanced lineups, same deal. We'll see what we end up getting to. Save 20 lineups, so we'll go check out the exposures there. Also, people bring it up. If you guys want to play a lineup with Corey Seager right now, go to shortstop, just type in Seager and he shows up.
It should be up now. We had an updated 343. It had to be. No.
In DraftKings.
Oh, in DraftKings. Gotcha. Yeah, you have to remove the non-probables and then add him that way. Yeah.
You don't even have to. You just go to shortstop and type in Seager.
Yeah, and it'll still come up. It'll have the red X thing through it, and you just want to add him no matter what.
Yeah, I've seen like 5 people say that he isn't on the slate. He is. Just type it. I don't even know if they're going to change their updated lineup, but if you type in his name, I promise you he shows up there.
Best play on the slate. I repeat it. Corey Seager.
FanDuel lineups. What do we get into here? Most rostered pitcher, Chris Sale, followed by Joey Estes, actually over on FanDuel. Scroll down a little bit more here, Jacob. I want to see if we're getting Davis Daniel anywhere close to what the field is doing. The answer is no, which I love to see. We're not getting Davis. It's so much. I mean, him being like 30% owned on a single pitcher slate where every team is playing almost, it is absurd. So I'm very much on board with not getting to the ownership on Davis Daniel on FanDuel. And then if we look at the stack exposures, let's see what we have for stack exposures on FanDuel. Pretty similar to our Milwaukee ownership on DraftKings. I think that was also 60%. Minnesota showing up in half our lineup, some Yankees, Rockies in 10%, Dodgers in 10%. What's your favorite stack over on FanDuel, Eric? Is it also the Brewers or a different direction?
It's the Minnesota Twins. So you're not playing two pitchers. You don't have to necessarily do it. Like if I were playing both sides today, I can tell you one thing. I would be on the opposite end of a 4K pitcher that you have on DraftKings there, where on FanDuel, you're not getting the same kind of benefits for a one pitcher site. And I'd be firing up the Minnesota Twins. You get a brand new face to the party. He's 2K, Brooks Lee, for DraftKings FanDuel. You should be playing him. You have Jose Miranda. He'll have to fill in admirably at third for the aforementioned Royce Lewis. He's been in a lot of these lineups as is, but Kyler Montero, I think there are going to be some growing pains for him, and Minnesota against righties have just completely shown out nonstop here. And this Montero character, it's very limited sample size, 79 pitches, but a 316 expected ISO to righties. So I think that there's definitely some upside. 80 plus degree weather, 50% humidity, wind blowing out, great hitting environment at Target Field.
Anything else that, at least in terms of top stacks, looks different to you on FanDuel relative to DraftKings?
Yeah, I'm looking through it here right now. I mean, I would still have a lot of Milwaukee. That wouldn't change. I would still have quite a few Dodgers. I think that's going to be something that's showing up on both sides. Shohei Ohtani is going to be popular. I'm not sure about the rest of the party. For FanDuel purposes, the one team that I'm looking at that might be a little bit overowned for the people. Again, I know my Minnesota Twins are popular over there, but I'd be more willing to embrace that than the New York Yankees sitting at 9% against Andrew Abbott. He's been really good at limiting power, and obviously Judge and Soto, like you're never going wrong going to those guys up against Abbott. It feels like a spot where I'm more inclined to get away from any other piece there. Like if you want to play a one-off Judge, go right ahead. You want to play a one-off Soto, go right ahead. But I think the Yankees as a four-man, probably something I'd really want to be underweight to on FanDuel.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I do like getting some leverage by making A stacks. That's my favorite leverage stack of the slate. Here's another spot I like a good amount, though. The Houston Astros going up against Yusei Kikuchi. The Astros are finally healthy. They're hitting the ball well again. Have you looked at the numbers for Kikuchi over the last month? He got obliterated in June. His FIP was over 5. His ERA was like 6.5. So there's a lot of concerns about Yusei Kikuchi. He had a great start to the season, but there's been no historical evidence that he's that good of a pitcher or that he should be going forward. I think this is a good spot to be attacking Yusei Kikuchi. And it's also a great offense he's going up against in the Houston Astros, who I still think is a team that is getting slept on a little bit. So I like that as a stack quite a bit. Those are the 3 teams I have double-digit exposure to: Houston Astros and the 2 teams at Coors Field.
7 homers over the course of 27 1/3 in the month of June. That is fun to stack against. I don't hate it.
That start he had against the Boston Red Sox, where he just got tagged over and over again for homers, and I had a good amount of exposure to him in that spot. I was watching that. I was like, boy, something does not look the same right now with Yusei Kikuchi. And that's been in the back of my mind ever since there's been a spot to fade. And we got one right here against Houston Astros. So Houston, that's going to be a big stack for me. Anything else you want to add as far as priority stacks? If not, we'll check, see if there's any other questions, and we'll do our home run picks.
Let's do that.
All right. No other questions in Discord. Let's see if anything came across on YouTube. Not at the moment. So, Eric, yesterday I filled in for Jordan Klein to give out a Shohei Ohtani homer. And look at that. He came through. I didn't realize Jordan's strategy works all that well. You just pick people from a certain region of the world and they homer for you every single time.
Yeah. Take the chalkiest homers on the board and just collect your money. Pass go, collect a bajillion dollars.
There we go. Who are you picking today?
I'm going to go Tyler Stevenson. I brought him up multiple times, put him in Discord, talked about him ad nauseum here. I like Cincinnati going up against Rodon if we're going to get this kind of leverage. Like, it might not be 20%. Maybe it ends up being 15%, but that still feels like a pitcher being a fly ball pitcher going up against a guy who doesn't necessarily launch the ball very well as is. He's had a pretty low launch angle all season long. It's been sub 8%, but it's at 14.8 degrees against lefties with a 204 expected ISO. I like picking off Jonathan India, Ellie De La Cruz. We know his fantasy upside, Spencer Steer, Stevenson. I am picking off a lot of those righties there going up against Rodon with his lovely 224 expected ISO against.
Alex Bregman for me going up against Yusei Kikuchi. That is going to be my home run pick of the day. Some calls from chat. We have got David Wayne now going with the Josh Smith homer. We've got Taco933 going with JD Davis. Castro for Andy Melman. Correa for Andre B. Mike Campbell's going with Shea Langoliers. Francisco Rubio's got Heimer Candelario. Charles Moran going with Corey Seager. I love that one. Nate Lowe from Michael Roundtree. Bellinger from Robert Grease. Machado from Michael Kennedy. Also Nathaniel Lowe from Alex Serra. Obi-Wan also going with Corey Seager. Carlos Correa from Ricardo Nelson. Like half the picks here, it's either Correa or Corey Seager. So shortstops to homer today, I guess. Ken Rowdy backing me. He's going with Alex Bregman. Reg Kell has got Jackson Merrill. We've got Clarence Johnson also going with Alex Bregman. We've got David Wayne going Gleyber Torres and Josh Smith. And let's see what else. Almost Made has got Kepler, Freddie Freeman from Poker Lemon, Riley Green from Free Scotty, Bregman as well from Wookie, Hunter Renfro from Aaron Hines, Langford from Frada Louie, Freddie Freeman from JB Hughes. And that is going to do it for us today. Also, Chad Rock also threw an Alex Bregman. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you haven't done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tomorrow, July 4th. One thing to mention about tomorrow being July 4th, big promo over at OddsShopper. If you guys are looking for a monthly OddsShopper subscription, take advantage of that either today or tomorrow. There's a link for it below in the YouTube description box. When you sign up with the promo code 1776, you get a month of OddsShopper for $17.76. So go ahead and check out that if you're looking for some help with sports betting. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the holiday tomorrow and have a good night.